Today we're going to be taking a look at Moff Gideon in his Dark Trooper armor. This one was released about a month ago with Cassian Andor in his TIE Fighter pilot disguise. A little bit of background on this particular figure. He appeared in one scene of Season 3 of Mandalorian. No, wait, I take that back. I believe he appeared in the cliffhanger and then the season finale of Mandalorian Season 3. And given the nature of what they were building up to with this particular figure, what a great excuse to put out a really awesome action figure. Basically today I'm going to be doing an unboxing. We'll take a look at this figure and its details, do all the articulation, look at its accessories and stuff, and then we'll close this thing out with a rating. So let's do a walk around the box real quick. On the side there, you got some pretty cool artwork of Moff Gideon in his Dark Trooper armor. Some details on the back there. And you got that nice orange stripe going around the box. And as typical for this style of box, you've got a little bit of glossy spot coat there. So you got that on the Hasbro logo and then on the Star Wars logo. Well, we're going to go ahead and get this guy open. There we got him in his bubble card. And what's interesting with the case of more recent releases, they haven't been putting a cover slip for the bubble card. Basically, it's coming in a regular old cardboard box with a cellophane window, of course. I guess Hasbro's just decided to skip that sandwich layer, so. Got a pretty cool charged up electric staff there. Here's the compact version of that staff. You get a tiny little pea shooter. Pew, pew, pew. Got a pretty cool helmet here. And the figure itself. So let's take a closer look at this fella. All right, so we got some awesome details on this thing. Yeah, I would say this is a pretty darn good likeness of the actor Giancarlo Esposito. Really cool details on the armor, it looks like. The one thing that I'm going to say straight off the bat that's a little surprising to me, caught me off guard at any rate, is I knew it had a jetpack. Did not realize that this thing is basically glued onto the cape. This is accurate to the show, but not removable. So that's an interesting little bit of detail. And ultimately, you know, I will say that it probably doesn't really matter because this dude appears so briefly on Mandalorian in this armor. So kind of a one and done type deal. Now, one thing that I'm noticing immediately is that usually the limbs, the knees, joints, and hips and thighs and all that stuff are generally pretty stiff on Star Wars figures. For whatever reason, they're not, I would say, necessarily loose, but the hip joints are not really stiff. That is one interesting little bit that I'm noticing straight up. And yeah, you know, the thing here is that this armor sculpting is pretty damn awesome. Got a little bit of cloth texture detail on here. For the wrist gauntlets, he does have a little bit of traditional Mandalorian type styling. So yeah, within the lore of Mandalorian, the story arc for this character is that he's basically borrowing from a lot of different cultures to build up to this particular set of armor, whatever. So it does have Mandalorian style beskar armor, using some components of his Dark Troopers that he designed and had produced and whatever. And I believe also whatever research he did into Jedi, Force wielders and that kind of thing, whatever the part of the plot was that had him capture and basically enslaving baby Grogu. Yeah, let's get into some more details here. Basically, got a really nice cloth cape. It does flow really well. It's not obtrusive in any way at all. One thing that's kind of nice is they cut it to just the right length, so it comes right down to his boot heels. So it's cut to a very precise length. So that is kind of a nice little bit. So there again, we got some cool details, a little bit of cloth exposure here. Pretty heavy duty, bulky armor. Nice details on the boots. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but it looks like this dude wears lifts. Don't know if that means his character is a little bit short and a little bit self-conscious about it or what, but that's definitely what that looks like to me. Got a nice belt there with hip holster, buckle right there. Nice little bit of butt pad armor there. How this whole crotch piece works when he has to go to the toilet, I don't know. They don't cover that in Star Wars. Yeah, and it's interesting that on the torso, you've got more or less an armor plate there. With Mandalorians, it's usually just like a cloth piece or whatever, and then you've got like chest armor or whatever. So with his armor, he seems to be a little bit more well protected. Yeah, you got shoulder pads, and these are softer plastic. It's the newer style that isn't connected directly to the shoulders, so you will have some flexibility of movement there for sure. It's kind of the nice thing about these Black Series kind of late in the game here. They've been at this for over a decade now, and they've just sort of built and built and built upon character styling, manufacturing processes, and that kind of thing. So the ultimate end result is the figures just keep getting more and more improved. Jetpack is a pretty cool style, I would say. Typical Mandalorian jetpacks have that sort of centerpiece where it's, you know, you can add, sort of like with a car, you can add the missile package or whatever, and then they'll have nozzles or whatever where the jet exhausts are. And these are more like, sort of like the Earth equivalent of Stealth Fighter jet exhaust. Got tiny little fins on the sides there. Streamlined. So one thing I'm noticing with the armor here, and this is kind of unfortunate, is that it is actually a little asymmetrical, and that's a little bit surprising. This seems like an odd detail to let slip, and I got to imagine that this is not a one-off manufacturing error or something like that. This is the actual production piece where you have this asymmetry, and you can kind of see where the diamond in the centerpiece is a little askew of the figure. You can see it's definitely tilting a little bit at the top here to the left. Don't know why or how they missed that, but that is a fact. So yeah, that's a weird one to me. I don't know if there's any way to remedy this. This top piece is kind of a softer piece of plastic though. I mean, it's sort of a separate piece, but I don't think there's any way to take this off without destroying it. That is something else that's interesting here. I don't know what they have going on or how they stitch this whole thing together, but as you can see, the cape is actually attached by a cord of some type, and I'm not sure how it's inserted there, but that is interesting. You have no maneuverability, obviously, with this cape because it is kind of held in place by the jetpack, which, of course, is completely glued or fastened or however they attached it to the backside of this figure. So that's more or less some interesting details about this figure. Let's talk a little bit about accessories here, because he does come with some pretty cool stuff. Another thing I'm kind of finding out is this figure is not the most well balanced. Usually with figures of this variety, if it's a bulkier male figure with bigger boots and that kind of thing, usually they're a lot easier to stand up and just get into a basic standing pose, but this guy's a little bit wobbly. So that is a little bit surprising to me. But anyway, on to accessories. You do have this cool helmet here. I love the styling on this, and if you look real close, the visor has a little bit of a flake paint effect on it. Got some red highlights there on the jawline. Those infamous horns on it basically says, "Yes, I am the boss." Pretty cool piece all around, and it is a little bit thicker along the jawline to more closely form around the shape of the character's head. There again, we get the compact version of the electric staff, so I got to assume, and I haven't found it yet, but surely there is something on his belt or whatever, damn it, or he can attach it to a loop or a hook or something like that, so I'll be looking for that. There again, like I was saying, he does not want to stand up quite as well as some of the other figures. So you get this tiny little pistol here, which is freaking ridiculous. The way the story goes in Mandalorian is you're building up this character, Moff Gideon, to get this beskar blaster-proof armor, and it kind of goes without saying he's an adversary to the Mandalorians, and he goes up against other characters who have, what is it, blaster-proof armor, and he's got this tiny little pistol. I mean, what's going to happen in that situation? Stick 'em up and give me all your beskar. Seriously, dude? And you get what is certainly one of the nicer pieces in this figure set, and that is you get this charged electric staff with an energy effect on it, and this can actually be removed. You can have it both ways if you want to. That's pretty cool. Yeah, as you can see, it slips right on and off there. It's a nice looking little effect one way or the other. So let's take a quick look at articulation here. This figure has no thigh rotation. So there again, it's pretty bulky armor, and I get the logic of why they would not want to have a thigh rotation or something like that on this. That would definitely break up the line of this armor. Wouldn't be a good look, so I am actually more in favor of not including it on this figure with this particular sculpt. This is a one-of-a-kind piece. No other figure like this. But you do get rotation at the knee, so there's a little bit of that, and that's slightly hidden by the kneecap there. Knee can bend pretty well, and the hips can swing out a good ways, so he can do the splits. Can get his leg up, but not straight. His leg's gonna come up at an angle if you wanna rotate that up. Ankle can tilt down. You got a little bit of rotation on that there. Yes, I guess it can tilt. That's an interesting little bit of engineering though, because it can't just tilt sideways at any position. It's gotta be at a specific angle. Looks like the wrists are on sort of a ball socket type deal. Most of the other figures have the wrist on a basic hinge, but this one can rotate all the way around and swivel. And you do have a bit of elbow joint action there. Elbow can twist. Pretty good range of motion on that. And the shoulder, again, like I said, with those armor pauldrons, they're not attached, so you can bring the arm way up and over. So there's a pretty darn good range of motion of that. For as bulky as this armor is, this is completely unobstructed. So that's a nice bit of engineering for sure. Hasbro has gotten really good at designing these figures so that one, you have a great range of articulation, but also you're not sacrificing any look or anything like that for the figure. So in order to get there, torso can definitely swivel, turn, pretty good range of motion to bend down and then also up. Head articulation is decent. It's not terrible. Yeah, so it's sort of on a double neck type articulation thing, but the neck itself is, I mean, it is a separate piece from the armor, but at least the lower part of the neck can barely move, at least as far as what I'm seeing. So if you want to have him looking up, unfortunately, I think he's going to have to do the Batman thing where you have to tilt the torso to get him to look up. Doesn't look like the head wants to tilt up too much. Or you can have him tilting back and going, whoa, wait a minute, buddy. So that's about the range of motion. I would say that, yeah, this figure can get into some pretty dynamic poses. You could do what you can definitely get what you need out of this figure for sure. But yeah, those damn ankles and the thighs are just a little bit softer as far as their joints than what is typical for other figures, so. And speaking of action poses, we're gonna go ahead and start loading him up with his accessories here. Helmet fits on there perfectly nicely. Yeah, with the helmet on, he can turn his head, whatever, has a full range of motion. There's nothing missing there. And damn, is that a pretty cool look. That is freaking cool. As far as this teeny tiny little pea shooter, this one does actually have an enclosed holster. Many of the other figures have kind of an open spot on the bottom just because of the bulk of the blaster that fits in there or whatever. This one just sits right in there and the strap will close cleanly over it. So as far as this other little piece, I'm looking around here and I'm not seeing what you could do with this thing. I guess I kind of assumed that there was some kind of a belt buckle loop or whatever. Like some of the Jedi have a loop on their lightsaber hilt, like Ahsoka Tano in particular. I'm not sure how many of the other ones have that, but she can attach her lightsabers directly onto her costume. So, and I'm not seeing where you can do that with this figure. So it's kind of like, this is a cool little piece to have, but why did they include it? Beyond with the full extension staff with a charge effect that you can easily remove or whatever, I don't see that much added value in the retracted version of this. So there would certainly be more value if you could attach it to the costume or something like that, but it's included. So options are always good, I guess. And I just discovered something completely interesting about this figure by accident. Being on a ball socket type joint, that damn hand is completely removable. So let's see what we can do with this. Yeah, it just pops right on there, so no big deal. But what is a big deal is the way these hands are really tight, so it is actually hard to get his hand around the staff there. But another thing you can do is double-hand it. And, you know, something else I'm discovering here, another kind of unfortunate thing about this figure. So the helmet does slide on really cleanly, but it's a little bit wobbly. I mean, you could see that sliding all around the figure's face. So not as tightly sculpted as it should be around the figure's head, unfortunately. You still have the full range of motion. The head is going to turn inside the helmet with it, but then you have this going on here. So that should have made that thing a little bit of a tighter fit, I think. One way or the other, you can definitely get this dude into some pretty damn cool poses. At any rate, I think it's a pretty good value for what you get with this figure, but we're going to go ahead and give this guy a rating. Just to recap, this is a rating system of 5 categories with up to 5 points each for a potential total of 25 points. As far as figure details, I think they did an outstanding job of capturing this particular character for the brief amount of time that he does appear on screen. His articulation is good, but it's somewhat hampered by some odd choices here and there, just the aggregate of which does kind of detract just a little bit from what you could do for the character's poses. I would say, yeah, you could pretty much get this character in about any pose that you need to. But there again, you do have some slightly looser joints on the hips and on the ankles. No thigh rotation, of course, that is within the knee. Instead, damn helmet is a little bit loose, so that's kind of unfortunate. There again, you could pose it how you need to, but you're going to find it to be a little bit more of a chore with this particular figure, just because of certain joints that aren't quite there and other parts and joints that are a little bit loose. So as far as accessories, he comes with a pretty good set. I mean, I don't see the purpose of the retracted energy staff, but, you know, it's there if you want it, if you want to have him hold it in one hand or whatever, not charged up. I don't know. The helmet is really cool. Wish it were a little bit tighter, though. It seems like a little bit of a whiff on Hasbro's part to not make that completely form-fitting around this dude's head. It does come with a little pistol and a hip holster, which is pretty cool, and I do dig the cape. The cape is really nicely done. It's the perfect length, and it's not obtrusive in any way. So as far as the figure quality, yeah, for all the reasons mentioned already, I gotta ding that just a little bit. Seems like they could have put just a little bit more engineering into this. And man, that asymmetrical chest piece is a little bit surprising to me. I don't know why they let that slide. So if there's anybody else here who happens to get a Moff Gideon in this Dark Trooper armor, if yours is the same, just let me know with a comment. I am definitely curious if that's a manufacturing issue and not just like a one-off defect or something like that with my piece. As far as accuracy, yeah, I would say this is pretty spot on. Ultimately, I am giving this figure 21 out of 25. So that is a look at Moff Gideon in his Dark Trooper armor. What a cool action figure. Does have some flaws, but overall I would say it's a pretty damn good one to pick up. This is one of those that I would recommend with some caveats. So yeah, just be aware of maybe some slightly less quality parts and some janky joints and that kind of thing. But if you can live with that, you're not a total perfectionist or whatever, don't expect perfection in your figures, this is a really, really cool one to have. One way or the other, this is X-Mattingly bringing you some more Star Wars content. If you enjoyed watching this video, please feel free to leave a share or a like or whatever. And in just a few short months, I have amassed a pretty sizable collection. So I've got a lot more figures to review and share and talk about and that kind of thing. So one way or the other, I appreciate you taking the time to watch us, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.